Everybody, welcome to Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. I got a great Thursday show for you guys today. We're going to have some fun. We got a couple of fun stories. We've got, of course, the Hannity story that I've been promising all week. I know. We'll have fun with that. Well, we also have some good news, although I am a bit cynical. I am a cynic. So you'll have a little bit of cynicism in this story, but otherwise seems to be a pretty good news story, at least when it comes to progressive legislation. And after all, that's the goal. We have a new minimum wage bill that's being pushed, introduced, and it actually has establishment support, which is a big surprise. Then we have President Obama. I'm going to go after him for giving Wall Street speeches. Then we're going to have a little bit fun. We're going to talk about aliens. Illegal space aliens, to be exact. That's one of my favorite stories. You're going to love that story. That's in the middle of the show. Then we have Fox News. Jesse Waters getting himself into trouble already. The guy's on a... No, you know what? I'm going to save it for the story. I'm going to save it for the story because that's fun too and ridiculous. There's a lot of hypocrisy. And then, of course, Hannity thinks that liberals are attempting to silence conservative voices by getting conservatives to claim sexual harassment against them. That's an insane story. Again, I know I haven't had time to get to it. I promise today is the day. Today is the day. Well, we're going to go after Hannity and simultaneously slightly defend him while also ripping him a new asshole. That's fun. All this stuff, we're going to have a good show. So stick with me for the next hour around the nation right here. Make sure to share the stream, share the fun with your friends, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Go ahead. If you could share the stream, if you could like the stream, fantastic, great. I really encourage you to do that. Get more people, get more viewers watching, and all that stuff. So, before I get into the show, like I said, I got your breakdown that I did. Now, I want to give you, I want to do some patron shout-outs for helping the show, keeping us on the air, and all that stuff. Let's see. I'm just picking some names out at random from the patrons. So if I read a name that's already been read, I apologize. Again, I'm just picking them out at random. And if I don't get to you now, I'll get to you at some point. Because there is a lot of patrons, and it's amazing how much you guys believe in the show and have, decided to help me out, to help us continue to go and to do these shows and to continue growing. Because, again, there is a long-term strategy for the show. I want it to grow. I want to do more things. I want to do the things that we're doing here even better. So, and you can only do that with your support. So, first, I want to get a couple of new patrons that have signed up in the last couple of, the last day or so. We have Raymond Fortunato, Thomas Johnson. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Raymond. Bob Magruder. Thank you, Bob. Andrew Na. Greg Heinzman. And Alta Harding. Thank you, all of you. Greg, Alta, Andrew, Bob, Thomas, Raymond. Thank you. And also, Bacon the Rabbit. You gotta love some of the creative names you guys come up with. But thank you, man. Your donations mean the world to me. And thank you so much. And I'm sure everybody who enjoys the show also appreciates your donation, keeping us on the air. Because that's what's doing it. That's what's keeping us here. All right. Anyway. Let's do a couple more random ones. We've got Rebecca Babcock. Thank you. I know I've already said that before, but great friend of mine. Thank you so much for helping the show. Irving Gonzalez, Tom Dreyer, Amanda DeLong, Joseph Terry, Perry Ramstead. Great guy, Perry. Richard Brothwaite, Martin Trammell, Stephanie, Karen MacArthur, Nancy Kohler, and Sammy Osborne. Thank you, patrons. Thank you so much for letting the show continue. All right, so enough of that. Let's go get into the stories. I know that's what you're here for. It's what I'm here for. Let's start out with Bernie Sanders and the $15, the new $15 minimum wage bill. So that's fun. It's good news. Okay. Now, Senator Bernie Sanders has introduced a new bill to raise the minimum wage. Now, along with co-sponsor Patty Murray from Washington, Sanders introduced this bill to basically raise the wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. Now, it's called the Raise the Wage Act. And basically what it would do, kind of break it down here, is that it would phase in an increase in the minimum wage beginning in this July. So, hey, wow, that's great. The largest boost, of course, would occur in the first year of its implementation. Basically, what it would do is that this year, the federal minimum wage would go from $7.25, as it is now, to $9.25 this year. And that would happen in July. Then, of course, it would go to $12 in 2020, and finally to $15 in 2024. And then afterwards, of course, it would tie this wage to inflation. Now, the legislation would also gradually increase the lower minimum wages for tipped workers and workers with disabilities employed in special workplaces so they can achieve parity with broader minimum wage. Now, look, that's an issue that we haven't really talked about. The fact that tipped workers obviously get way less, but then they try to make things up with tips and sometimes come out ahead. I mean, I have a friend who works at the casino where I live and or near where I live. And she does decently with tips sometimes, but it is unreliable, in my opinion. But some days she does really, really well. Other days, not so good. And so it all depends. So there's not really a lot of stability when it comes to that. So maybe this will actually help. Then, of course, there are people that are disabled that are working in specialized factories or fields that often get paid lower than the minimum wage. So, those people obviously will also deserve a raise. Everybody deserves to be raised up to a better wage, something that they can survive off of, something that they can live off of. Now, it says, this is from the Huffington Post, by the time it would take full effect in 2024, the minimum wage proposal would raise the pay of 41.5 million workers, according to an analysis released by the Progressive Economic Policy Institute. The bill would ensure that in 2019, the minimum wage would exceed the inflation-adjusted peak it reached in 1968. Okay, so hey, great. Good. I think this is fairly good news. Now, this also is a lot like a similar bill that Sanders introduced back in 2015. Now, that bill, when that was introduced back in 2015, a couple of years ago, he only had 5 other senators sign on to it. 5 other senators. So it did not do very well. It didn't get a lot of support from Democrats who were supposed to believe in raising the minimum wage. Well, that's interesting. So now he's trying again. How much support does Bernie Sanders have for this new piece of legislation? It now has the backing of 23 senators, including Murray, the ranking member on Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Oh, look at Schumer. Wow. Now, look, here's the thing, right? I am incredibly cynical of the Democrats right now. The Democratic Party has continued to show over and over again how it's willing to sell out progressive values in order to continue to get donations from large corporations. And in doing so, continuously punching themselves in the face. And punching the voters in the face, too. So, now, they had access back in 2015 to all the polling data that shows that a living wage and a higher minimum wage overall is incredibly popular among the American people. Now, Clinton, she ran on $12 an hour, never really got too far behind $15, maybe until later in the campaign. And when she did, of course, I believe that it was more of lip service than anything else. So, but anyway, why now? Why now? Well, you could argue, if you're an optimist, that, hey, look, the Democrats, look at that. They're coming around to Bernie's agenda. They're coming around to Bernie's platform. I don't agree. I don't think that's the issue at all. And look, to show that, you really have to look at some of the vicious attacks that have been happening against Bernie Sanders from establishment Democrats, establishment media. You have pieces in Slate, pieces in the Washington Post, all attacking Bernie Sanders, the Daily Banter, attacking Bernie Sanders, attacking Cenk Uygur, the Young Turks, for being progressive. And then all these issues talking about, purity tests and all that stuff. Well, okay. So I don't think it's necessarily the Democrats moving towards Bernie's platform. But again, I think it's more of an issue of the fact that there is no chance that it'll pass and the fact that it's super popular. Well, if it's not going to pass and they support it, again, because you have Republican control of the House and the Senate and the White House, ain't none of this progressive legislation coming through. You think Donald Trump's going to raise the wage to $15 an hour? Hell no. No matter how popular it is, or no matter how popular it's going to make him. Again, he works for the donors, and again, so do the Democrats. So it's got no chance of passing. However, the Democrats make this move. It kind of sets the table for 2018. Hey, look at that. We stood with Bernie Sanders when he supported this piece of legislation, progressive legislation. That's not quite as progressive as it was back in 2015, but it's fairly progressive. Vote for us. Well, I guess it would be smart politics. But again, there's that cynicism, there's that trust factor that the Democrats no longer have the trust of the American people. So now, of course, there was back in 2015 when Sanders introduced this, there was also very little chance of passage because, again, the Republican obstruction and, of course, the Democrats, siding more with corporations and saying, hey, whoa, let's do this gradualism. And this bill in itself is gradualism, and it's reflected. For example, hold on. But I guess before we get into that gradualism, I do have a quote from Murray here that I want to get to. Now, asked Wednesday if Democrats had finally arrived on a minimum wage plan they could all agree on, Murray told HuffPost that was the wrong question. Quote, the question is, will the Republicans work with us to raise the minimum wage? I think that we have designed this bill in a way that people across the country can get behind it. That's actually a good answer. That's actually good playing. She's playing good politics. So I guess you got to commend her on that. Good politics and good policy going hand in hand. But again, there's the obvious issue with this isn't going to pass. And so they're actually getting more on board with supporting this piece of legislation that has no chance in hell. Now, the part of this that I'm sure bothers a lot of progressives is that they're going to wait until 2024 to actually get to a living wage. Again, there's some issues with that. It's incredibly gradual. We kind of need a minimum wage raise now. And actually, it would have been time beforehand when the Democrats actually had control of the House and the Senate and the White House. That would have been a great time to raise the minimum wage. It would have been fantastic, but again, they didn't do that. They focused on conservative health care. So I'm passing a conservative health care plan. Now, the other thing about that, it goes back to the criticism of Bernie Sanders. Now, again, we need this bill now, or we needed this bill way before now. But Sanders did negotiation with the corporate Democrats in order to get this piece of legislation. Again, his previous bill raised the minimum wage to $15 by 2020. That's 3 years from now, as opposed to 7 years from now. So it was still gradual to give businesses time to adjust, but also faster. Well, this gives businesses a lot more time to adjust. And actually, one of the other problems is, of course, okay, I'll get to the other problem as well of what it actually equates to in 2024 when it comes to the wage. But again, back to the criticism here. Notice one of the major criticisms coming towards Bernie Sanders and progressives is, the purity test. Not only do you have a purity test for progressives or for legislation or for politicians, for Democrats, but also you can't make deals when you have these purity tests. Well, here's Bernie Sanders making a deal with Murray and Schumer, in order to pass a slightly less progressive, but still fairly progressive piece of legislation. What happened? What happened to Bernie's purity tests? No, he's more than willing to go and make a deal for long-term progressive legislation. Now, Sanders' previous legislation, again, as I mentioned, phased in the $15 minimum wage by 2020. This new legislation's slightly longer phase-in period, according to the Huffington Post, was the result of the negotiation with Murray aimed at getting their support. And again, this is a step in the right direction. And look, and even Bernie Sanders, he's good at making deals. This guy is the amendment king. This guy is somebody who's worked with John McCain to get help for veterans. So this is some guy, this isn't somebody who can't make deals, as opposed to, of course, the narrative that you would hear from some corporate Democrats. Oh, Bernie Sanders can't get anything done, can't make any deals. Purity test. No, he can actually make deals. And he's actually pretty good at negotiation and getting some fairly progressive stuff done. So even with the corporate Democrats. Now, this is good because, again, he shows that he can make deals. But we're going to have, he realizes that he needs to make deals with these Democrats in order to try and give them a chance in 2018, or at least until, progressive Democrats come in and crush the corporate Democrats in 2018, and then we go on to maul the Republicans. But look, the bill essentially sends a message. Hey, we're working on legislation to help you. And that's a good message to have. And I do support it. But I think, again, 2024, a little too long. We should have something like this now. Now, they went to announce this bill earlier yesterday during a rally on Capitol Hill. Now, Sanders was joined by Murray, Schumer, Ellison, and Scott, and other lawmakers to support this bill. Now, Schumer told the crowd that the Democrats are going to stop nibbling around the edges and start fighting for bold legislation like the $15 proposal. Now, he said, quote, "It's not about a number. This is a case for economic justice." Hey, man, look at you, Schumer. Look at you sounding like a progressive. We know you're not. We're not buying it for 1 second. But hey, as long as you vote for progressive priorities, we don't give a fuck if you actually believe in it. If you're doing it just to save your own ass, don't really care. It's the policy that matters. But that's just my opinion on that. Now, the establishment Dems seem to be, as I mentioned, backing this Schumer, and even more establishment think tanks, the so-called liberal think tanks that are more of the corporate establishment, are also getting behind this. Dean Baker, co-director of the Center for Economic Policy Research, worried that Sanders' 2015 legislation would have led to a noticeable increase in unemployment that would not only hurt workers, but also provide fodder for conservatives to argue against future increases. Now, he said, of the current bill, I feel much better about this one. I wouldn't say the risk is zero with that target in 2024, but it's certainly much smaller. Now, on that, he's actually factually incorrect. He's wrong. Bernie Sanders' original bill was better, and there's actually some data to back it up. Now, a $15 minimum wage by the early 2020s, adjusted for inflation, is actually $13 today. So it would be the equivalent of $13. Now, that will actually be a little less than 60% of the projected median wage in California and New York. That's actually barely higher than the U.S. minimum wage was in the late 1960s. So again, to show you how actually moderate Bernie Sanders' plan was, his original plan back in 2015. Now, in the 1960s, the median wage was 55%. So, in 10 U.S. states, including Vermont, Maine, North Carolina, and Florida, they all had minimums of 60 to 65% of the median minimum wage around 1980. Now, you know what happened then? You know what the effect on the labor market was? None. It didn't have any negative effect on the labor markets. There was no evidence to show that having a minimum wage that high, the median, 60 to 65%, hurt labor markets. And now all we're asking for, or Sanders was asking for in 2015, was less than 60%. And this one is even less than that it's somewhere around 50%. So there's that. Now, not only that, but University of California economists had conducted a very sophisticated research to date on the impact of higher minimum wages. Now, research that more than 75 economists have endorsed shows that, unlike small wage increases, a $15 wage generates billions in new consumer spending that offsets some of the higher costs to businesses. And because those workers would get a raise in low-paying rural areas, the consumer spending increase would be greatest there. Now, they always talk about, oh my God, it's going to hurt the mom and pop shops. You're going to kill business in rural America. Maybe you shouldn't raise the wage. Well, no, it turns out those areas are the areas that get the highest benefit, not the cities, not the big cities and the big companies, but actually in the rural areas. That would have the most benefit. That's the area that would benefit the most, which is pretty amazing. That would, of course, provide an extra boost in sales to rural businesses to, again, offset some of that extra cost. Now, Dean Baker, unfortunately, was wrong about Sanders' original bill. But, and the sad thing about that is that you have so-called liberal think tanks that are echoing conservative talking points. Because, again, higher minimum wage hurts employment. Well, that's our right-wing framing that we have now. And even so-called liberal think tanks have adopted that framing, despite evidence to the contrary. But even with all that, I'm going to have to concede that this at least is a step in the right direction. We are going in the right direction of a higher minimum wage, of a living wage. And at least people are trying to go out there and really kind of spread the message of, hey, this is progressive legislation. We stand for that legislation. And this is the stuff that we want to get passed. At least that's what Bernie Sanders is doing. Again, I'm very suspect of the other Democrats, but they might not be an issue. If we crush them in 2018, progressives do, then we could actually go forward with Sanders' maybe new plan or even the original plan that brings it up to $15 by 2020 or possibly even sooner. So it all depends. But again, I see the possibility of good news because this should show the people that, hey, there's some Democrats that are in office that are still on your side. They're not on the side of corporations. And of course, one of them is Bernie Sanders because he continues to introduce better pieces of legislation, good pieces of legislation, and working with members of the Democrats, the Democratic Party, to try and get this stuff done. So overall, I'm going to take it as a good piece of news, even if it doesn't have any chance in passing. All right. Anyway. So there's that. Let's go to, let's go after Obama. I'm in one of those moods today. All right. This will not be a nice piece. Fresh off his vacation, former President Barack Obama is now planning to get paid very handsomely for giving speeches. Speeches to Wall Street. Well, that's very interesting. You would think the Democrats at this point, after the crushing defeat, the embarrassing loss of Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump, would avoid going and speaking to Wall Street firms. You would think that would be something that they would be smart enough to avoid. Oh, I don't know, that looks bad. We really don't want to be known as the party of Wall Street. Oh, well, never mind. I'm going to go and speak for a lot of money. Now, again, the speeches that I referenced were the Goldman Sachs speeches that Hillary Clinton gave for $250,000 a piece. Now, surely, this cannot be the same, right? As I mentioned, nobody can be that dense, right? To think, come on, man, like, we're not going to do the same mistake as Clinton. Because Clinton, again, gave these $250,000 speeches to Goldman Sachs, and she got raked over the coals by both Donald Trump and progressives. So, how much is he actually going to make from this speech? President Obama is set to make $400,000 in his first speech since leaving office. A speech to Wall Street firm Cantor Fitzgerald, scheduled to take place in September. I'm telling you, man, they're not learning a damn thing. Now, Aaron Blake, he wrote a great piece in the Washington Post of all places. Now he reported this and he's like, wait a minute, this is a bad idea, and he actually stated some of the most obvious reasons why doing these speeches is a terrible idea, and that he should immediately cancel these. Okay. Now, number one, he points out, is the precedent. It looks bad, okay? Now, he writes, George W. Bush and Bill Clinton did this too, as have Hillary Clinton, as we pointed out, Ben Bernanke and Alan Greenspan. And the more that Wall Street firms give out-of-office presidents and big-name politicians these paydays, the more they become the norm. Other presidents will know that such payments are on the table, and it risks coloring their decisions with regard to Wall Street and special interests. You don't say. Now, this is one of the reasons Hillary Clinton was like, this is the reason progressives went after Hillary Clinton so hard. Right? We went after her with a lead pipe and a blowtorch. We were not kind, okay, especially when it came to these speeches, because she got a lot of this money from Wall Street doing these speeches, and we kind of figured that, hey, when you get a lot of money from certain places to run your campaigns or just personal, this is not campaign money. This went right into her pocket. Well, you're going to go and represent those companies. You're going to be sympathetic to their point of view. Hey, this company gave me money. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to be more sympathetic to what they have to say. Okay. Again, that seems to be a problem. Now, Donald Trump was smart enough to exploit this. Okay. Now, of course, Trump, we know, con man, who meant none of his anti-Wall Street sentiment. But this was a layup that even an idiot like Donald Trump knew how to exploit. Okay. Because it happens to be true. And in the case of Obama, you could even make an argument that this is happening retroactively. And Blake makes that argument. Quote, whether it's fair or not, it's not difficult to look at Wall Street paying $400,000 to Obama as a reward for the lack of prosecutions for anyone involved in the financial crisis. In that way, it's tough on both precedent and Obama's presidency. Now, that's actually a super relevant point. That's a great point. Whether or not it's actually true or fair, not really going to matter. See, what this is about is that it's about the optics. It's about the perception. And a lot of progressives, such as myself, have been increasingly angry that President Obama had refused to punish any of the bankers for crashing the economy in 2008, especially after all that we found out. Instead, they got golden parachutes, they got their companies bailed out by the taxpayer, and these banks continued to get even more powerful under Barack Obama. Because, look, hey, man, I only look backwards. Or I'm sorry, I only look forward, not backwards. I don't look backwards, I look forwards. Come on. Well, how very convenient of you for your banker friends that gave him millions of dollars during the 2008 election. Again, Goldman Sachs and some of these banks, Citigroup, were Obama's biggest donors during his first campaign. Again, incredibly convenient. Now, Blake also writes, it's not as though the idea of holding office and then benefiting from it at a later date is a completely novel one. The Trump administration, the Obama administration, and Congress have all instituted lobbying bans on their employees, limiting their ability to lobby government after leaving government, usually for years. These bans aren't written because those aides may one day rejoin government and be influenced by having made wealthy by certain interests. They're written because it is so normal for former aides to cash in afterwards and basically use their government jobs for a future payday on behalf of well-heeled special interests. The prospects of future wealth became a given. So this is, again, some of you watching are like, yeah, so we knew this was happening, this is normal. But doesn't anybody think that that's a problem? The fact that it's normal shows that how big of a problem it actually is. It should set off alarm bells in everybody who's watching, who's listening. Even the fact that you're like, yeah, what's the big deal? This is normal. Oh, wait, this is bad and it's normal. Oh, look at what the system has set up. It's a perverse incentive. Go into politics, go into public service, and get rich. Well, public service isn't supposed to be a get-rich-quick scheme. But a lot of people, thanks to our rules, our campaign laws, and the fact that people can go through that revolving door, well, it has made it into this. And, of course, that's a disaster. And this article is a complete acknowledgement of that massive corruption that we all know is there and that we've always known is there, but pointing it out. Now, those lobbying bans, sadly, don't do a lot to discourage that corruption, though it is a small effort. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Can you think of somebody in office right now? Maybe a senator, maybe a congressman, governor, president of the United States even, who's only in it to get a payday once they're out of office? Just saying. Look, so let's get back to the optics here for a minute. Now, Blake writes, the whole thing comes at a somewhat inauspicious time for the Democratic Party. No kidding. Just as Democrats' true identity is in flux, as Sanders' anti-Wall Street message seems to be ascendant, and as President Trump at times co-opted that message in the 2016 election, that brand of populism clearly has very broad appeal. And now Democrats are being put in the position of deciding whether their former president should take $400,000 from Wall Street for a speech. At the least, it risks suggesting the party's anti-Wall Street posture is in some cases just that. Posturing. You don't say. Really? Wait, you mean the Democrats could actually be lying about opposition to Wall Street? Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. I never would have guessed that the Democrats would lie in order to keep getting corporate money and votes. I mean, come on. No. We know from experience that the Democratic Party, en masse, has lined up behind Wall Street interests. We know that. Not all of them, of course. We have some great progressives, Sanders, Warren, Gabbard, Turner, and others. But look, the corporate Democrats, I can see them now defending Obama to the hilt for taking this corporate money, even though it looks incredibly bad. But that's, of course, if they were to acknowledge that this was a bad thing to do, that, hey, well, President Obama, you should not go and take that money from this bank to do a speech. Well, they would have to admit that it was wrong for Hillary Clinton to do. And a lot of corporate Democrats can't get behind that. They can't wrap their head around that. Like, there's only so much I can pretzel myself to defend Hillary Clinton. But I'm going to try anyway. So I can't admit that what Obama was doing was wrong, even if most of the country thinks that it was wrong and that it is corruption. They can't do that because then they would actually have to criticize Hillary Clinton as well. So, and that's the thing. This is a thing that has to stop with the Democratic Party. Now, if they ever want to win back regular people, they've got to stop cozying up to Wall Street and the banks. They have to. Especially somebody who talked about the corrupting influence of money in our political system. Now, I'm going to read you some of Barack Obama's own words on the subject from his 2006 book, The Audacity of Hope. Quote, I know that as a consequence of my fundraising, I became more like the wealthy donors I met, in the very particular sense that I spent more and more of my time above the fray, outside the world of immediate hunger, disappointment, fear, irrationality, and frequent hardship of the other 99% of the population. That is, the people I'd enter public service or public life to serve. And in one fashion or another, I suspect this is true for every senator. The longer you are a senator, the narrower the scope of your interactions. You may fight it with town hall meetings and listening tours and stops by the old neighborhood, but your schedule dictates that you move in a different orbit from most of the people you represent. It's funny because Bernie Sanders seems to have not affected him. He still seems to be very much in touch with his constituents, with regular people. Just saying. Now, he continues, as perhaps as the next race approaches, a voice within you tells that you don't want to have to go through all the misery of raising all that money in small increments all over again. You realize that you no longer have the cachet you did as the upstart, the fresh face You haven't changed Washington, and you've made a lot of people unhappy with difficult votes. The path of least resistance, of fundraisers organized by the special interests, the corporate PACs, and the top lobbying shops, starts to look awfully tempting. And if the opinions of these insiders don't quite jibe with those you once held, you will learn to rationalize the changes as a matter of realism, of compromise, of learning the learning the ropes. So President Obama knew this. Senator Obama knew this. He talked about this. Now, this isn't necessarily an indictment against President Obama himself, but it's a good example of how the system gets to people, how the system changes people. Again, he became that person that rationalized the changes wanted by his donors. Remember, if your policy priorities and those positions that you once held are not the same as the donors, you have to rationalize when you're sending, because you have to raise money from them. You have to dial for dollars. Well, man, I guess I can, look, I need the money. I want to do good. There's stuff that and I have done good. I think I can do more good, but I got to get that money. So I'll bend on this position here. I'll be a little bit more friendly towards the corporations. I'll bend a little bit on workers' rights, just because the greater good. The greater good. Well, that's unfortunately what the system of money and politics corrupting our system makes you do. And that's, again, this is not necessarily Obama's fault. I'm not saying he's a bad person. And I'm not saying, I even said Hillary Clinton. She was somebody who also had to maneuver in this system, and she got really good at it, and she took advantage of that system to great effect, raising billions of dollars. Didn't do her a damn good, but she got good at using that system. Because you kind of have to. In the system the way that it's set up. It is the system that is corrupt, that spreads corruption like a seed. Now, you can't change that by replacing people. You could replace Obama, you would get somebody that would have to maneuver with the same type of system, that would have to make the same kind of compromises in order to get donor money. One of the only people that actually didn't do that was Bernie Sanders and a couple of other really good progressives that said, no, we're not going to take that corporate money because we know what happens. We know that you end up having to compromise your positions, not in order to get bipartisanship, but in order to get that money, in order to get the campaign contributions. That's the problem here. That's the problem. You can't just remove the symptom and expect the whole thing to be fixed. What you have to do is you have to target the disease. Money is the disease. The money in politics is killing democracy. It is making people have to make these decisions. And if you remove that money, then you'll actually get people who want to do good that are able to do good. And that's the whole point. So go after the money in politics. You have to go after the corruption that is endemic in that and defeat it. That's the only way we're ever going to get true progressive change. Okay. So there's that. Now let's have some fun. Let's talk about space aliens. I know you'll go from a great story about corruption to space aliens. That's what to expect on this show, man. We do all sorts of things. We do all kinds of things, man. Okay. Let's see. Let me get that. All right. Now, following Trump's executive order in January, the Department of Homeland Security had rolled out a new office to help protect the victims of immigrant crime. Crime perpetrated by illegal aliens. So now I reported on this registry for the victims of immigrant crimes. I said it was, of course, dangerous because, look, as if the crimes committed by immigrants are any worse than other crimes committed by Americans. Crime is crime. All the victims should be protected. All the victims should have their problems heard and solved. Okay. Now, nonetheless, the White House continues to come up with different methods of going after illegal immigrants, again, using some very racist means, again, with things like the register. And they also have gone after people who didn't actually commit any crimes, people like dreamers. They deported a dreamer recently. So now, along with some of the more heinous aspects of this order, the White House also launched something called Voice. Well, it's basically a new hotline in which victims or witnesses could easily report criminal incidents involving what could be undocumented immigrants. Now, how do you actually know that if you see a crime that is committed by an illegal immigrant? Are you actually going out there and saying, "Where's your papers? Where's your documentation?" Well, who would you go after in that case? If somebody looks Latino, do you immediately assume that they're an undocumented immigrant? I think there are a lot of people who would be like, I don't know. I think this guy it looks like he looks like a Mexican. So, and he did a crime. So he must be an undocumented immigrant. You guys need to check this out. That's what I see what happened. Okay. Now, if you're a victim of that crime, by the way, why would you call this hotline instead of calling the police? It's kind of weird. It's weird that there's a separate hotline for crimes perpetrated by immigrants, especially considering how immigrants are actually far less likely, according to studies, to engage in criminal activity than those who are actually native born. Now, look, when you're talking about the bad ones, people who are undocumented immigrants that have actually committed real crimes, as in assault, robbery, rape, theft, I have no problem with saying, okay, look, you can't be here. Like, you can't be here and just rape people. You can't do that. Despite it, of course, it happens at very, very low rates. But you don't want those people in the country. I understand that. I don't think a lot of people is going to disagree with actually getting actual criminals and drug dealers out. But again, the purpose of the order doesn't seem to protect those victims. It actually seems to be more to fearmonger, to try to paint all immigrants as potential criminals. Now, in fact, Common Defense Executive Director Pan Campos had argued that Trump's new initiative is very, very dangerous. Quote, "This office is a depraved and dangerous propaganda vehicle that exploits tragedy to fuel hate and division. Our commitment of service has no room for tolerating the xenophobic registry, which serves no purpose in helping the victims of crime and only exists to provide fodder for racism." I couldn't agree more with that. And again, there seems to be no point in separating immigrant crime from normal crime and then putting a spotlight on it. It just, again, it seems very, very racist. Now, I have another thing. Now, in one of the reasons that the Trump administration said, oh, well, we need the special hotline, we need the special registry, is that immigrant crime doesn't get reported as much. Well, maybe the whole fact that it doesn't get reported as much is because it doesn't happen as much. Because again, as I reported, numerous studies have shown that immigrants are far less likely to engage in criminal activity than regular native-born Americans. So again, there's that fact. But again, they don't really care about facts. Now, when it does happen, most conservative outlets like Fox News, they literally have an orgasm in their pants. Like, oh my God, I can't wait to cover this. I can't wait to cover this because it suits my political agenda. So anyway, now all that, and I guess that's context really of what this whole program is about. So this hotline opens up, and because of the problems in it, it immediately gets massively trolled. I love this. Now, again, this is being reported by different agencies, but I'm going to go with Salon here, that reports that organized online under the Alien Day hashtag, immigrant rights activists claim to have quickly overwhelmed Trump's hotline with complaints of crimes committed by space aliens. Space aliens. So the aliens are coming, but they're from space. And they're doing crimes. Amazing. And actually very, very amusing And look, hey, technically, space aliens would be illegal aliens. After all, they don't have papers, they're undocumented. They're illegal coming over here in their spaceship, stealing our jobs from coming over here from Bortron 9. Here they are, man. They're coming over, they're abducting our people, they're doing, anal probes and stealing people's jobs. Got to get rid of those aliens. Got to report it. They're over here wrecking our national monuments, too. I mean, you know what happened to the White House back in 1996? They blew the damn thing up. We had to rebuild. Thank God for Will Smith and Mac viruses. In fact, hey, look. The idea of an alien attack, that's not so far-fetched. No. Right now, actually, we do have an alien expert that has the ear of the President of the United States. And he talks about alien attacks. In fact, I have him talking about alien attacks and what's going on. So let's take a look at that.
It is an alien force, not of this world, attacking humanity like the Bible and every other ancient text says. It's not of this world. I don't know exactly what it is or what it's doing, but this is not human intelligence, okay? It's not human intelligence we're under attack. Everybody's under attack.
Oh my God, we're under attack by aliens. I need to call the Trump hotline. I have been victimized by an alien. Look, it's funny. Jones might actually be the only one who would call because, as you just heard, he thinks we're actually literally under attack by aliens or, well, I mean, it could be aliens. It could be the devil. I mean,
it's the devil. Okay.
Okay. I don't know. All we know is that
it's not human intelligence.
That's all we know. Okay. Look. So, I mean, well, look. What are we gonna do? We're gonna build a giant space wall. You know how effective that would be? It would be about as effective as the southern border wall. I'm just saying. But no, seriously though, this is racist. It is xenophobic, and it actually does exploit actual tragedies for political gain. For the gain of people like Trump, like Sessions, like Steve King, for example, or Peter King, both incredibly racist, and I can't tell the difference between either of them. But look, overall, there's nothing to be gained by doing this. So go ahead and troll the hell out of this hotline. Because again, victims, it's not like this hotline is the only recourse they have. They also have a little thing called 911. They have the police who are there to investigate crime. So again, yeah, troll the hell out of them. But there you go. And don't worry about the illegal aliens. Again, there's facts that show that they do not do crime more than native-born Americans. It's a non-issue. It's bullshit. So ignore it and move on. We have actual other real problems that we can actually solve than aliens and illegal aliens. Okay. Also,
that's the fight. That's the key. That's everything.
Okay. I wanted an excuse to play that. Okay. Let's go. Let's talk about Fox News. Well, little Fox News hypocrisy. This is fun. Didn't take long for another Fox host to get himself into trouble. Now, this is coming weeks after O'Reilly was fired after sexually harassing a great deal of women. Many, many women. Here comes Fox News co-host of The Five, Jesse Waters. Now, Waters is a disgusting human being, and he seems to be very, very determined to follow his boss into exile. Now, Waters, of course, is the new co-host of The Five. You just recently got this job, and that actually happens to be a very important point in this story. Now, he was on The Five to slam the left, for booing Ivanka Trump during a women's forum in Germany. Now, in context, let me tell you why they were booing her. Now, she said her her father was a tremendous champion of supporting families. Well, that's an interesting thing to say, based on his policy proposals that, for one, the immigration would literally rip families apart, and already has ripped families apart. You've seen people who voted for Trump have their husbands deported to another country. They've already happened. They've already been deported, moved to another country. You're literally ripping families apart. Now, also, all the budget cuts that have hurt programs, Meals on Wheels, for example, all these different things, not exactly family friendly. So to really say that Trump is a tremendous champion of families doesn't seem to be very true. Now, Waters on that, he's gonna lay into the left for booing Ivanka. Let's watch.
You know, the left says they really respect women, and then when given an opportunity to respect a woman like that, they boo and hiss. And I always thought the Europeans were supposed to be so sophisticated and well-mannered, and now they're treating this like it's a soccer match. I don't understand what's going on. I think Ivanka's supposed to be the moderating voice for her father, so I think people in Europe should support that. I don't know why also saying that, you know, my father respects families is controversial. I mean, he's probably hired a ton of fathers and mothers and children, so I don't really get what's going on here, but I really liked how she was speaking into that microphone.
Well, that was weird. Okay, well, first let's go to the substance, then we'll go to the non-substance afterwards. Now, he says, oh, Trump, family, what a family, great family guy. What's controversial about that? Well, again, his policies seem to be quite anti-family. But he follows it up by saying, hey, man, the guy hires children and you know, mothers and fathers. Well, look, odds are you were at least one of those three. Everybody is at least one of those three things. You really can't avoid hiring somebody who's a child of someone, or who is a mother of someone, or a father of someone. That literally makes no sense. Now, the controversial bit came at the end. Boy, I really like the way she was speaking to that microphone, you know what I'm saying? You literally made what seemed to be a sexist joke or a sexual innuendo joke right after chastising the left for not respecting women. What do you think that was? You're making some ridiculous perverted joke that would have been funny if you were 13. And look, I seem to be unkind towards 13-year-olds. Because there are 13-year-olds that are like, dude, that's not funny. What's this all about? With the microphone. Oh, I really like how she was speaking to that microphone. Yeah, okay. Look, I've gotten a look for Ivanka Trump, but it's based on what she's actually doing. She's not a moderating influence on her father. She's done literally nothing to moderate her father, and she's been using her position to advance her own business interests, meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, sitting in the meeting, and sitting in the meeting with Chinese President Xi. Yeah, she's been using that position in the White House that is unpaid to further her business interests. That's the problem that I have with Ivanka Trump, and the fact that she has done no such moderating of her father in her position, or in his positions. So, there's that. Okay, but look, if you're going to defend her, which you have all the rights to do, at least you can do so without being a juvenile jackass. Okay, look, Jesse Waters, he's not a news person. He's a hatchet man. And all he does is that he ambushes people, and then now on this show makes childish sexual innuendos on the air. Is it what do you like laugh at the word or giggle at the word penis and vagina? I mean, look, this is the Fox News talent pool that's left. Even the notoriously loathsome supposed liberal Bob Beckel isn't that much of a douchebag. Now, of course, Waters later clarified this by saying, hey, during the break, we were commenting on Ivanka's voice, and how it was low and steady and resonates like a smooth jazz radio DJ. Yes, I'm sure that's exactly what you were saying in the break. And oh, she sounds like a jazz DJ, man. Oh, it's so low and steady. Nobody says that. Come on. I don't believe that. I'm not buying it. Now, funny enough, Waters, after this happened, after this blew up, Waters decided to take a vacation. Well, come on, that must be just a coincidence, right? Well, The Hill reports that late Wednesday, Waters announced that he was taking an abrupt vacation from the Five. Now, remember that thing that I said earlier, that to remember? The fact that he just got his co-hosting gig on the Five? Well, here's that article from The Hill. This is his statement that's in The Hill. I'm going to be taking a vacation with my family, so I'm not going to be here tomorrow, Waters said during the show, according to reports. I'll be back on Monday, so don't miss me too much. His abrupt departure comes just 3 days into the new primetime slot for his show. CNN's Brian Stelter noted that Waters will miss 2 days of his first week in primetime, as well as his weekend show. Now, well, that's interesting. So, does everybody who gets a promotion go on vacation 3 days into the new job? That's weird. Is that how you celebrate? I mean, look, I don't know. I don't work at Fox News. I don't work in major mainstream corporate media. Maybe that's what they all do. Maybe they all take vacations the first week that they get co-host a new show, and then happen to say something ridiculously juvenile and stupid. Oh, or not. I don't know. Now, do you remember when O'Reilly also went on a surprise vacation? Well, tell me how that turned out. Come on, man. Look, I'm not saying that this is 100% definitive proof that he's going to get fired. I'm not saying that, but it does look a little fishy, interesting, right? And we're going to have to see how this whole thing plays out. Fox News has been, Fox News, 21st Century Fox acquired Sky News. In order to do that, they had to purge themselves of Bill O'Reilly and any of the controversial stuff that Bill O'Reilly did. Well, it happened that Jesse Waters was on Bill O'Reilly's show all the time doing ridiculous things. And they call him Jesse Dirty Waters for his style of ambushing people and saying ridiculously horrific things. So this could be another possible casualty of the Sky News deal, especially if you're saying things that, again, while Fox News is still under the microscope for being sued for sexual harassment, for hosts saying sexist things, bad timing for him, I guess. But again, we'll see. If he's back on Monday, I'll be like, well, I guess I was wrong. If not, well, then obviously there was something to this. We'll have to see. Okay. He's in Lord Mercy. It's almost time to go. All right, I do have one more story. I've been promising this all week, so let's get to this. Okay. All right, let's go to Hannity. Now, Sean Hannity seems to be maybe in a little bit of trouble as of late due to allegations of sexual harassment. Uh-oh. This isn't good. Again, this follows what Fox News has been going through lately with first Bill O'Reilly and now possibly Sean Hannity. Now, but wait a minute. I might actually take Sean Hannity's side. So hold on for a minute. So let's get some of the facts here. Now, it turns out a former contributor to Sean Hannity's show, a woman by the name of Debbie Schlussel, okay, is alleging that Hannity maybe sexually harassed her or propositioned her, and when she refused his advances, he retaliated by no longer bringing her on his show. Well, look, those are some serious allegations. I'm not really here to litigate it too much. I'm just here to give you what I know. Now, this is from Law News. Now, they report that Schlussel, who was a former Fox News guest and appeared on a local radio show last Friday and recounted an incident where Sean Hannity had basically propositioned her, or what she says, asked her to come to the hotel. When she rebuffed his advances, she claims she was ostracized by the network star. Now, of course, Hannity coming out strong against these allegations on his show earlier this week said this.
I have to start tonight by addressing a well-orchestrated effort by the intolerant left in this country that is designed to silence every conservative voice and by any means necessary. Now, I am speaking out tonight so that you, our audience, will understand what is really happening here and what is really at stake when it comes to freedom of speech in this country. Now, these tactics are right out of Saul Alinsky's Rule for Radicals playbook. Now, I've worked in radio for 30 years. I've been right here at the Fox News Channel for 21 and a half years. I'm very proud of that. And during this time, there's always been efforts and attempts to smear and slander and besmirch me and other conservatives, but it has never been as intense and completely insane as it is right now. Now, I want you to understand, every single minute, every single second I am on the air, radio, TV, there's somebody, likely being paid, recording and monitoring every single word that comes out of my mouth, all in the hopes that I may say something they can twist and distort and use against me and try and destroy my reputation, get my conservative voice off the air. Now, it's only gotten worse in the age of President Trump. Now, it's no secret I've been a supporter of the president and, of course, his policies. And quite simply, these liberal fascists, they can't stand conservative voices. Now, for those of you who don't know me well, I have a pretty thick skin. I call out people, I say things, I give my point of view 4 hours a day. And for all these years, well, there has been endless, unrelenting attacks against me. But now, in light of recent events, I have come to the conclusion I can no longer remain silent, and I can no longer let the left slander against me slide.
Oh, okay. Wait. Well, hold on here. So let me get this straight. Now, you get accused of propositioning someone, and immediately you jump to attacking liberals and calling it liberal fascism. For what? Reporting that this actually happened? Not the fact that you proposition this person, because we don't know what happened, but just reporting that, hey, this might have happened, this person says this, Hannity says that. Well, that seems perfectly balanced news reporting. But no. This is liberal fascism. It's slander. Hilarious. What does this actually have to do with liberals at all? Anyway, again, all we did was, well, not me personally, because this is the first time I'm reporting this story, but different outlets have reported this. And yes, some will go to, did go to saying, oh, he's guilty. I'm not going to that. I'm not doing that. But for the most part, this doesn't have a lot to do with liberals other than the fact that they've actually reported on this story in left-leaning media. See, Debbie Schlussel, it's not like she's some bleeding heart liberal, okay? This person is a well-known, well, maybe not well-known, but she's known well enough as a conservative commentator. So she's a conservative, and she says, hey, this might have happened. Now, again, she backtracks on her story a bit, but just the idea of reporting that this happened, that there's this disagreement between them, that's somehow liberal fascism. It smears. I don't quite get it. Okay. Now, I'm kind of going to defend Hannity at this point. That was hard to get out. Okay. It was very, very difficult for me to say, but that's what I'm going to do. Now, Law News reports that Schlussel denied that she was ever sexually harassed by Sean Hannity. Okay. So there's a fact right there. She denies. First, she comes out and says, I was sexually harassed, but no, actually, you know what? I go back on that. He didn't actually sexually harass me. Okay. Now, Schlussel stands by her description of the incident. She told Law News that she doesn't believe what happened between the two amounted to sexual harassment by any sort of legal definition. Quote, I would never accuse him of that. Sexual harassment has a special meaning under the law, and I would never accuse him of that. Okay, so what exactly was the situation in the first place? Quote, he tried to get me back to go back to the hotel after the show, and he and his executive producer, Bill Shine, treated me horribly. That was after she was on the show, and basically they did a tag team, but not that way. Okay, so apparently she felt very, very mistreated. Now, she later clarified that he didn't ask her to go back to his hotel room, but just to the hotel in general. Okay. Now, the hotel room, that's got a special connotation, right? You ask somebody back to the hotel room if you want to have sex with them. That apparently did not happen. She's saying that it didn't happen. Okay, but hotel. Well, what do hotels have? Hotels have swimming pools. Okay, that could get a little sexual. Maybe. Or they also have bars. Maybe Hannity asked her, hey, yeah, great show. Let's go get a drink. You, me, and Shine, let's go have a couple of beers. Perfectly harmless. I don't think that would be an issue at all. Now, she doesn't clarify if that's what happened because she didn't go. She was like, no, you treated me badly. I didn't like the way that you treated me on the show, so I'm not going to go. Plus, I think you're a creep. In fact, that's literally what she said later on in the story. But first, again, she did say that he was... okay, I never thought I was sexually harassed by Hannity. I thought he was weird and creepy, not someone I liked. So that's a quote from Schlussel. Okay. Now, not only that, but she alleges that afterwards, when she said, hey, I'm not going to go to the hotel with you because I think you're weird and creepy. Well, he didn't have her on the show. Now, there's another explanation of why he didn't have her on the show other than retaliation. Maybe because Debbie Schlussel, nobody cares about her. She's not a big get, okay? He had her on a couple of times. Turns out she's not really somebody who you would want to have on the air. Again, there's a famous video. The Young Turks just tore her apart. She had a show called, what is it? Debbie Does Politics. Horrific. There's a video out there. Go and look it up. It's got some terrible dubbing. I edit all the show. Even I couldn't botch a segment that bad in editing. And you could see the dubbing. It was terrible. That's somebody you want to have on your show, even if you're Hannity, even if you're an insane person like Sean Hannity, in a hack. You're going to have someone like that in the show? No, that's not somebody that is going to actually get you ratings. So that would probably explain why she was never invited back. That and the fact that she did call him creepy and not someone that I like. But not only that, but Schlussel also has a history of going after Hannity with other things that she couldn't back up. Back in 2010, Schlussel wrote a blog post claiming that the Freedom Alliance, a war veteran charity that is supported by Hannity, was skimming donations off the Freedom concerts and was a huge scam. Now, look, I don't know the details, but as far as I know, there doesn't seem to be evidence of that happening. So, hey, and look, if there is evidence, if you guys can find it, if somebody can find it, great. I'll report on it, and I'll give all credit to Debbie Schlussel for finding that out. But if you don't have the evidence for it, well, then it's unfounded. Then it is a smear. Now, that's an example of the many unfounded things that she has claimed throughout the years. So, again, when it comes to Hannity, I do think at this point, I think the claims are unfounded. Now, Hannity's reaction is classic grifter, okay? He's taking advantage of this to push his political agenda, to attack liberals. Hey, look, never let any opportunity to become the victim pass you by. And that's where Hannity is at this point. Now, again, he said, I'm not going to let slander go unchallenged by the liberals. And this is all about trying to shut down conservative views. No. Debbie Schlussel is a conservative. She's one of you. Even if you disagree, even if you don't like each other, you have the same kind of beliefs. Now, she's also clarified her story to say that, actually, no, that's not, he didn't sexually harass me at all. But again, you have Sean Hannity playing up this victimhood against the left, which has nothing to do with this story. He said there is a coordinated effort to silence the voice of every outspoken conservative. Everyone who publicly supported Trump is a target. I'm not the only one that these liberal fascists routinely targeted. Like me, conservatives are monitored on radio, TV. Every word that they say, and contrary to the alt-radical left stated position, they're so open-minded. Liberals, he said. So, look, quoting you, or even showing a video of you saying certain things, that is somehow targeting you. Even though I have just defended you. There are no good people in this story. Debbie Schlussel somebody who's been making up stuff about Hannity, as far as we know, because there's no evidence to support her claims. And you also have Hannity, who's a hack and a bullshit artist. So, again, you have two terrible people ripping each other apart. It would be entertaining if it weren't so sad. Now, how this involves liberals, look, man, it would have been fine if they were just you two fighting against each other, but now you had to get us libs involved. How is this a liberal plot is beyond me. But maybe it's because I'm not fucking paranoid and I don't have a victimhood complex. Maybe that's why. Conservatives, man. Conservatives. Okay. It's ridiculous. All right. So that's it. Finally got the Hannity story out of the way. We're going to have a great show tomorrow, so tune in right here, youtube.com/TYTNation. We do, let's see. Yeah, we do have a great show tomorrow. So I've yet to plan it, but we do have a great show tomorrow. So make sure to tune in. Thank you for supporting us here. Make sure to like and share this video. And all the videos that we put up later on in the evening. If you missed the show, patrons get the full live show unedited, patreon.com/TYTNation. So sign up to get access to that. And let's see, do I have any other announcements? No, I don't think so. All right. So anybody, so anyway, love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.